वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा।
So, Mudasa 1 minute, I'm meeting you. Mudasa, unmute yourself.
Done? Yeah?
Yeah.
So shall we start now, Madhu?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Good evening, friends. I welcome our national level president, Shri Mohan sir, our vice president of Western Zone, Baburao Shakarwarji, all the office bearers of the headquarter, our friend Nirav Anand Gupta ji, and all the members who have taken out time to join for this wonderful session. All the past presidents and all the Mumbai Center members also, office bearers, Mumbai Center Chairman Sri Mohinder Rijwani ji, and my sincere thanks to Raju John, and special thanks to Madhu, who has been wonderfully coordinating this, because we are learning many things, because we thought that virtual meetings, how it is possible. I just thought of this idea, shared with Madhu, and believe me, post that without because give me any cause of worries. Today we are here because he has organized everything so seamlessly, so properly, coordinating with the SBI cap, all the people, drafting all the messages to be sent to email or WhatsApp. Outstanding. I think hats off to Madhu, because I think where there is a will, there is a way out, because you have shown a great example, and because we are here. At the outset, let me thank my friend, Mr. Birinder Sahni ji, who has been very kind to introduce me to. He is also principal investment from the SBI cap. He introducing us to Irfan Kaji, who is their chief investment officer. And today we are here for this very interesting interactive session. And SBI cap has been specially, because it's like special purpose vehicle, because floated by and funded and supported by the central government for supporting small special window for affordable and mid-income housing. It's called SWAMIA. So this fund is interesting fund, because I know supported by the central government, massive fund support is there. And I must compliment to Mr. Birinder Sahni, Irfan Kaji, and their team for doing extremely wonderful job in this segment, where the needy, and because people who are genuine, because they are genuinely stuck for many reasons, not their fault. Projects are good, and mainly because of the funding issue, if they're stuck at, they call because stress fund or last mile fund. They have been doing wonderful job. I think Mr. Irfan Kaji will explain more about it. And we are very fortunate to have Mr. Irfan here, that he has a wonderful experience of international as well as our Indian environment. He has worked in many country organizations in many positions, and he's been with SBI cap, and during his session, because this term, he has addressed to the CREDAI and many of the association their interactive session also. So we are fortunate to have him here. About his profile, I think it's a big profile, because I will request later our Mumbai Center Chairman, Mr. Mohinder Rijwani, to read it out. But before that, because once again, because I thank Irfan and his whole team for doing wonderful job. and all our members now today, because take this advantage, and whatever it was you understand, because his briefing, post that, because we'll have the question and answer session, where because you be ready with your question answers, and share with Madhu. And I'm requesting our Nirav Parmar, our past Honorable General Secretary of the national level, and who is the most active member of our BI Mumbai Center also here, to please post the question and answer session. Please you pass the concluding remark, and because probably vote of thanks too. So Nirav, I'm putting this responsibility onto you. So with this, may I request our National Level President, Shri Mohan Sir, to please address to all the members from your end too.
Thank you, Sri Muddaji. Good evening to all. Sri Magesh Muddaji, Sri Anand Gupta ji, our Vice President Sri Baburao Sakarwar ji, Nirav ji, and our past President Devkar ji, our Trustee Devchakke ji, and Mumbai Center Chairman Sri Maginder Rijwani ji, and Sri Irfan A. Kasi ji, and all the BI dignitaries. Good evening, one and all. I am very happy to be part of this webinar organized by Sri Magesh Muddaji, Chairman of BI's Banking and Finance Committee. Sri Magesh Mudda is known in BI as a very good organizer of educative programs. I, as President of BI and Chief Guest of this webinar, wish you all a very good health and request you all to take good care of yourself and family from the dreaded coronavirus. The whole world is going through an unprecedented lockdown, and it has affected the lives of the common man to the maximum. I am sure you also will agree with me that the COVID-affected lockdown has stalled the growth of almost all industries, and the economists are worried about its long-term impact of the economy. The lockdown has affected the construction industry the most, as it needs constant movement of materials, manpower, and machineries from one place to another place. More than that, it needs maximum liquid funds available at all times at site to cater the needs of site requirements. Friends, the construction industry, particularly the real estate sector, is one of the worst affected on cash flow liquidity under the lockdown period, as it has to take care of all concerned when there is no revenue is at hand. Here, I wish to appreciate the Government of India's helping hand to boost the cash flow by relaxing rules to avail funds from the market directly. It is in this regard, this webinar, namely workshop on intricacies of Swami Investment Fund, booster for Indian real estate industry, very important, and request all members to listen to the address of keynote speaker Sri Irfan Kazi, who is the Chief Investment Officer, Swami Investment Fund, SBI Cap Ventures. For your information, I also would give you a small brief about the topic. Swami Investment Fund has been formed by the Government of India to complete construction of stalled brownfield RERA registered residential developments that are in the affordable housing mid-income category, are net worth positive and require last mile funding to complete construction. It has a target corpus of rupees 12,500 crores. The sponsor of the fund is the Secretary, Department of Economy Affairs, Ministry of Finance, Government of India, on behalf of the Government of India. Friends, I think this is a good initiative and strongly feel this will provide more cash flow availability to the real estate players under the COVID lockdown period. I sincerely wish this would revive the real estate sector to its past glory. I once again thank Sri Magesh Mudda for inviting me to the workshop and wish you all the best. Please be safe and stay home. Thank you very much. Madhu?
Mudda sir? Mohinder sir, Mudda sir is not there? I think Mohinder sir, you please introduce the speaker so that we can take it forward.
Hello.
Mohinder sir.
Yeah. Just a minute. Good evening, friends. Mr. Irfan Qazi is the Chief Investment Officer for the Swami Investment Fund 1 at SBI Cap Ventures Limited. He joined the investment manager in April 2018. He has more than 25 years of international work experience in various facets of alternate investments such as sourcing, analyzing, recommending proposals for real estate and private equity investments, structuring and managing funds for private equity, international real estate, hedge funds, and providing advisory services for merger and IPOs. At the start of his career, Mr. Irfan was actively involved in managing IPOs and market making on the OTC Exchange of India for companies such as Time Guarantee and Fund Finance. He spent 7 years in Rana Investment Company. His mandate was investment and management of funds in alternative assets. Later, during the last 13 years, he has been active primarily in solicited private equity investments for asset management companies such as ICICI Venture, AIG Global in India, and L&T Infra Investment Partners. At ICICI Venture as Associate Director Investment, he played a major role for real estate investments in part of southern India. At Everstone as Senior Vice President and Head of Investment, he played a key investment role in raising 2 international funds, agitating $450 million for investment in the hospitality and warehousing sector. At L&T as Principal, he helped in raising and managing a 594 crore Indian rupees for domestic infrastructure alternative investment fund, and later ideated and created a high-yield real estate investment portfolio. Mr. Irfan has a bachelor degree in electrical engineering, a master's in management studies from Jamnabai Bajaj Institute of Management Studies, is an Indian charter holder for ICFA Hyderabad, and has been awarded CFA charter by the CFA Institute USA. It was a great pleasure to introduce Mr. Irfan Qazi. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohinder.
Mr. Irfan, the floor is yours.
Yeah.
So, namaskar everybody. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to talk here. It's especially difficult to start considering, the entire program started with Amitabh Bachchan, right? No one can get better than him, so it becomes very difficult to continue for anyone else to speak thereafter. Just a quick this before I actually get into a, maybe a 15-20 monologue. It becomes increasingly difficult for me to talk about the fund because this is easily the most public private equity fund ever. There is so much information about it. The president and the other speakers before me have already, know so much about it. It's pretty obvious that they do know so much about it. That, I think I'm reaching a stage in time where, somebody is going to point out, but Irfan, what you said is wrong. What the fund has is this, right? So bear with me. I will still try and go through the details. And if I'm wrong somewhere, please feel free to correct me. That's, that's something very important to us because, just quickly, straying off the main topic slightly, but, we have tried with, in spite of the fact that we have a very large team and we have almost 30 people in our team, to ensure that the culture is very democratic. The culture is where everybody can question an investment decision. The culture is where everybody analyzes the decision. It is not a top-driven, it is not a hierarchy-driven structure. I think that's the difference that we will make as a team. For example, just simply the team is entirely on a first-name basis, right? The questions you ask need to be answered. Authority need not be reported to, and so on. So, but that aside, let me just quickly start about the fund.
what I'll do is, as usual, I'll give a brief about the history, the mandate, the current status, what is it that we do differently, and so on. And let me say one of my most favorite thoughts, when it comes to describing the entire thing is, we do things differently. And over the next 15-20 minutes or so, I'll try and explain what are the things we do differently. And that comes simply from the belief that to make a difference, you need to do things differently. If you do things like they were always done, there is no reason why the same situation would not repeat itself, why the same stalled projects would not get stalled again, right? So we come in with a mandate to complete stalled projects. Just stepping back into the history of this a bit, it was on November 6th that the finance minister, a path-breaking, unprecedented, massive announcement, which I hope will get even more appreciated in the days to come, right? People like in the real estate financial services industry appreciate that a 10,000 crore massive fund, which was announced, got operational within a month, completely unheard of. I have been to more PE funds than I otherwise would want to in retrospect or in hindsight. And I can tell you that typically it takes about a year or more to close a fund. You do the first closing at about 40% of the total target amount, or maybe 50% of the total target amount. By the time you get fully operational, it's another year. By the time you reach the first 5 deals or the first 10 deals, it's another 3 years and 4 years. And the only reason I'm saying that is because we've completely changed the time here. The announcement was done on November 6th. The fund did its first closing on December 6th. And we did the first closing at 10,000 crores. We raised it from about 14 investors, primarily public sector investors, but there was also one private sector investor. And then we went about the business of investing. Now, let me tell you about the mandate of the fund. So the mandate of the fund was very clearly defined. But, and where does the mandate come from and what is the background to the minister's announcement? Maybe I skipped on that. So when we started off, when we started the back office work, the groundwork for this fund, almost maybe a month before the finance minister's announcement, we had commissioned a market study. We did a market study of all the stalled projects in the country. And what are now famous numbers, but these are numbers discovered in the course of that market study. There are about 4.58 lakh stalled units in 1,509 projects across the country. So for the first time ever, we were able to get a grasp or a handle on what is the scale of the problem. So now it became obvious the problem is large. That's one. But what the study also pointed out is most of these stalled units are in MMR and NCR. If you look at all the urban agglomerations in India, most of the stalled units are in the top 7 cities. 85% are in the top cities. So, that gets us to the conclusion we drew is, therefore, that one, it's a problem of scale. Luckily, it is still a very localized problem. It is still there only in some urban agglomerations in India, in some cities of India, and so on. It is not as widespread as we had earlier thought it to be. So that's the other base. But what really hurt, what really set the pace for the fund and so on, was the fact that it is not just that the projects are stalled. Then it would be a problem limited, let's say, only for developers. There is a far greater element. So for every developer and every project, there are, let's say, 500 people, 500 or whatever is the size. Let's say if you take 500 homes, right? So there are 500 home buyers, and if you take an average size of a family as 5 members, then there are 2,500 people whose hopes and aspirations are locked in that project. And what has happened? They are locked in the project. The project got stalled, not initially. The project has got stalled after it has sold substantially. So most of these projects are 50-60% sold. That means there's a home buyer who's now trapped in that project. That's one. Two, the projects are stalled for a long period of time. In most cases, maybe 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and more. So there is significant homebuyer pain which is locked in for a protracted period of time. And that's when the government stepped in to set up this fund with the objective of completing the projects, right? So our social objective is very clear. The objective is to complete the construction of projects. We also have a return objective along with that, which is to ensure that our investors get a return of around 12% or so. Now, should we just focus on the social impact? Should we focus on the returns to the investors? And it's not something new that we are doing. The world over, right? Everybody has discovered that to create a social impact of any scale, you have to make it attractive for investors. So that's how this fund operates. It creates an attractive investment opportunity for its investors while still creating an impact on society. Now, as I mentioned, we raised about 10,000 crores in a month. Our largest investors was the Government of India. They are also the sponsors of the fund. SBI has contributed 10%. LIC has contributed 10%. SBI Cap Ventures, the company I work for, is the investment manager to the fund. What is important here, and the only reason I've mentioned the size of the investors and so on, is none of the large investors, or for that matter, none of the investors have any say in the investment decisions that the fund makes. So the government took a very, very proactive step of staying away from the investment decision, right? So the investment decision is very objective. It is done by an investment committee. The investment committee has 7 members. We all present proposals to the investment committee. The investment committee is absolutely free to accept or reject an investment proposal. And why do we present it to them? What gives them the ability to say yes or no? Simply their experience. So we've chosen members who have significant experience in the real estate industry. And for the first time ever, I have worked at many private equity funds and many real estate private equity funds, right? It is not that everybody in the real estate, in the investment committee were people of a real estate background. They were generally people of an investment background. That has its positives. But here it's slightly different. All the people here in our investment committee are people of a real estate background. So we have one person who has for many years headed a real estate construction company. So he understands the construction aspects of the real estate business. We have another person who has worked in the investment, who has worked in several funds, who's at a senior level in the investment function. So he understands our proposals from an investment point of view. Then we have 2 more very senior, very respected legal professionals, right? They are the ones who, almost in a manner of speaking, write the book for real estate law in the country. So that's how the investment committee is made. Independent real estate professionals who provide, who use their background to guide us and approve our investments. So that's very important. In terms of the investment mandate, the entire, the idea behind the mandate was that let's define to include, not define to exclude, right? So we first defined what are the kind of projects that can come to the fund. And very clearly, this was an affordable and mid-income housing project, fund for affordable and mid-income housing. So the obvious question is, what are affordable and mid-income housing? And we chose to script a new definition for that. We said that, rather than having one definition across the country, which would therefore be, good for one place and bad for everything else, we decided to have a geographical definition. So 2 crores for Mumbai, prices up to 1.5 crores for the top 7 cities, prices up to 1 crore for the rest of India. And in all cases, the house has to be less than 200 square meters RERA carpet area, right? Many Mumbaiites on this call, you appreciate what is 200 square meters RERA carpet area, right? I am a Mumbaiite to the core. If I don't see my house as soon as I enter, I'm worried. So the sizes of houses in Bombay, predominantly less than 1,000 square feet, right? So 200 square meters RERA carpet area is a large, and it's a very liberal definition, and it follows from the spirit. The spirit is to include rather than exclude, right? So that's one. The other was that it will be for projects that are brownfield, not greenfield. And what is the, it basically means that it's not for new projects. It's for projects which have already started and stalled. And what are projects that have started and stalled? And, just to have everything that we try to do in this fund, we try to make it very objective, very transparent, so that, there is no feeling of, an arbitrary decision that has been taken, any excessive amount of discretion that has been applied. So in this case, we've defined that as any project with 30% of the 30% of the project cost has been incurred, that's a brownfield project. That's a project we can fund. And in terms of intricacies, like this seminar is all about, that project cost includes all elements of the project cost. It includes land cost, it includes FSI cost, it includes rent cost, it includes relocation cost, it includes hard construction cost, it includes architect, marketing, brokerage, everything. In fact, internally within the team, we define that as any cost excluding the cost of, excluding financial cost. Right? So that's the second part. So we can do only projects which are at least 30% completed. The third bit is this project, this fund provides last mile funding. Now, this concept of a last mile funder, let me explain that from what we refer to, what we mean by it. This is very different from the way funding is done in the industry. So far in the industry, funding was always that, if the project costs 100 crores, 10 crores comes from the promoter, maybe 20 crores comes from the bank, and 70 crores comes from the home buyer, right? And that all works very well till there is a slowdown, till the home buyer does not pay, till the sales do not happen. We've seen that happen in the past. So there was no point in us repeating the same thing, and therefore we come in as last mile funders, which means our funding by itself is sufficient to complete the project. फिर दुनिया में इधर उधर हो या ना हो, the construction of the project will get completed, right? Our funding will be sufficient to complete the entire construction. Given the fact that we also require the project to be net worth positive, there to be a cover for the lending and so on, we have then relaxed it slightly to say that we will place some reliance, but not a lot, on receivables, and we'll place almost no reliance on sales. Right? Because especially the last bit is that, project is stalled because sales are not happening, right? We cannot assume sales to happen, therefore. One of the things that this fund completely relies on is that there is a, some amount of home buyer lack of faith, lack of trust in the developer's ability to complete the project, right? They know developers themselves are troubled and strained. At this stage, if they contribute money, if they buy a unit, probably that unit will not get completed. So the premise of this fund is that if the unit is completed, the chances of it being sold are very, very, very high compared to what they are right now. To use the lingo, it is दिखता है तो बिकता है, right? तो जमीन के बाहर आएगा तो बिकेगा. So we will complete the construction. And that's what the last mile funding is all about. We will also provide priority finance. By priority finance, we mean we'll have a senior and a first charge on all the cash flows from the project. Now, this is probably the most, it's a very important part. It's also the most difficult part of our funding, because it means that the existing lenders have to seed charge. Existing lenders have to take a second charge. Now, this is not so much of a problem where, obviously where there are no lenders in a project, and there are a lot of real estate projects in which there are no lenders, right? Because strangely, the way it operates is you launch a project without debt, and the project does well. You do not need debt. Later, when the project is doing badly and is stretched, nobody is willing to provide debt, right? So there are projects with no lenders. And with no lenders, it's not an issue at all. We get priority funding straight away, priority funding status straight away. Where there is an AIF involved, where there is another private equity fund involved, again, it's not a problem at all, because private equity funds do not have, place reliance on cash flows more than on charge and so on. So no issues there as well. In fact, since most private equity funds, especially real estate private equity funds, do funding at about maybe 18-21% plus, they see our fund as a great opportunity because we are providing funding at 12%, right? So they see this as a great opportunity to leverage of the cost of funds that are out here. It does become a problem with NBFCs and banks, because the moment they see charge, they have to make provisions in their account. They have to, the asset debt gets degraded and so on. So they have been reluctant to do it in the past, but that situation is rapidly changing. We have been in existence for 7 months, and what was true about 5 months ago is no longer true now. is no longer true now. So we are seeing a lot of banks and NBFCs, allowing us to come in, complete the project, ceding charge to take advantage of this, unique, historic, one-time opportunity that has come in the form of this fund. Finally, we are also insisting as part of the investment mandate that the project has to be a RERA registered. In Maharashtra, for example, MahaRERA has been even more ahead than I think just about any other RERA authority in the country. So that gives us a lot of security that as a lender, that gets in a lot of regulations, so that helps us. So that is one of the features of this. So while I've explained the investment mandate, let me also quickly tell you what I had indicated in the beginning, which is what makes us different. We are different because, one, no other fund in the past has placed as much emphasis on completion of the project as much as we do, right? We talk about return of our money only after the project is completed. We talk about funding with a NCD, a non-convertible debenture, which is a pay when able structure, which gets paid only after there are excess cash flows after the project is completed. So that's one big way in which we are different. The fact that I mentioned earlier, we are one of the largest real estate teams in the country, and we've scaled, in a period of 7 months. So that's a difference. We look at cities across India. So we had done a press release earlier where we had listed down, all the cities we've invested in. So we've invested in cities like, north to south, as far as I can remember immediately, Chandigarh, Karnal, Panipat, Sonepat, all of NCR, Bhiwadi, Jaipur, Mumbai, Nashik, I think Nagpur, Pune. There's a place called Alandi before Pune, and further down south, Hyderabad, even Vizag, Kochi, and Chennai, and so on. So across the country. So we are not a fund, not a regular PE fund which says we will do investments in Mumbai, Bangalore, maybe NCR, right? We do not say that. We also do not say that we'll only do, the lingo used in the private equity fund industry is we have a sweet spot. So we'll do deals which are, between 75 to 100 crores. We'll do deals which are between 25 to $40 million and so on. We do deals across the board. We do deals up to 400 crores in any single project and up to 800 crores with any single developer. Is there a minimum? No, there is no minimum. So we look at deals which are even 5 to 10 crores in size, right? The only constraint, the only variable that will determine the minimum size of the deal will probably be the due diligence cost. So there's a due diligence cost which varies between, let's say, about 11 to 12 lakhs to about 30 lakhs, depending on, or maybe 25 lakhs. So between, let's say, 10 to 25 lakhs is the cost of due diligence. So for every deal, we do a financial due diligence, we do a forensic due diligence, we do a real estate due diligence, technical due diligence, and so on. We do a real estate valuation, we do a title search, everything. So that cost, depending on, whether it's a holding company deal, whether it's an SPV deal, upon the facts and circumstances of each case, anywhere between 10 to 25 lakhs. That's the only cost that is there in our funding, apart from the 12% IRR. To emphasize this, let me be explicit. There is no application fee, there is no processing fee, there is no annual fee, there is no commitment fee, right? There is only that 12% IRR. And again, let me emphasize what is a 12% IRR. A 12% IRR, if you want to compare it to a regular bank loan, to a regular loan which is paid on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis and so on, will work out to an interest rate of about 11 to 11.5% or 11 to 11.25%, right? Compare this with private equity funds who generally do their funding at about 22% plus. So we are half of the cost of any other private equity fund. In terms of where we are, so we were announced on November 6th. We did our first raise up on December 6th. And in the 6-7 months since then, we have moved from being a policy announcement to becoming an operational fund on the ground. And not just an operational fund. I would say we are in a phase where we could be considered as a mature private equity fund. most other private equity funds would take about 4 or 5 years to reach this stage in life that we've arrived at within about 7 months, which includes 3 calendar months and 4 COVID months. Now, someone in the at the beginning of this conversation did mention, right? COVID has been difficult for all of India. It has been particularly difficult for the real estate industry. From our point of view, while we could do all the work that we can do at home, there is a lot of real estate due diligence work that became a problem. Most of the financial records, most of the loan agreements, most of the title papers are all in physical form. They are not in digital form. They were all locked up in some offices or in some other places, and therefore access to them had become difficult. Closing documents becomes difficult. Negotiating documents become difficult. We are all used to sitting in a room and closing the deal. All that becomes difficult. But in spite of that, what we've always maintained, not just as a team, but as a team, is let's not what we can't do stop us from doing what we can, right? So we could still close. We did still try to close as many deals as we could. And so where are we now? What is the scoreboard? We announced just yesterday with that we've crossed 100 deals. So our IC has given approval to 101 deals so far. That will lead to the completion of 71,000 home units. 101 deals is about 90 more than what most private equity funds would do. This is possible only because 1, the size of our fund, 2, the size of our team, and 3, the size of our commitment to this cause, right? Finally, we have also, amongst the 101 deals, given a final approval to about 22 deals. Just understand this bit that, I'm sure you guys appreciate more than anything else. Closing a deal within this sector takes extraordinary amount of time. It is not just the diligence bit and so on. We have an investment committee that meets every week. So we can, in terms of our internal process, close a deal within 30 to 40 days. There are other factors that are beyond our control. So for example, we are dealing with stalled projects. What does a stalled project mean? It means that most of its approvals have also lapsed with the passage of time, right? And then we can take a slightly more empathetic view on some approvals. Like if the environmental approval has lapsed, there is nothing we can do about it. We'll have to wait for that to come. If there are some other approvals, critical approvals have lapsed, we will have to insist on those approvals coming in. So that's one. The second bit is a lot of the projects in this industry are being managed, are owned by individuals or by proprietary firms or by partnership firms and so on. We are a real estate private equity fund. We do not provide loans. We can only invest in NCDs. NCDs can only be raised, or NCDs can only be issued by a corporate structure, and therefore the partnership firm has to be converted to a corporate, right? And that process takes time also because some of the approvals are in the name of the partnership firm or the individual names and so on, and all those approvals have to be transferred. So therefore it takes some time to do some of these deals, but the best way of doing them is to just keep at it, right? And over time, all these will get done is what we are hoping for and aiming for. So with that, slightly long monologue, I'll leave the discussion open for questions. I'll try to answer as many as you care to ask. Thank you so much.
1 minute. Mudha sir, can you unmute yourself? Mudha sir?
Done? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Hello. My sincere thanks to Irfan, because very well explained, very crisp, to the point, yet very informative. I think all the members, I think, have paid the attention to what he said, and because I'm sure, because during this COVID time also, because how effectively they are working, because it shows that, as he rightly said, winners don't do the different things, they do things differently. And they have been showing it to the whole world and to the industry that everything is possible. I'm very happy that, because this is such an informative session we had. So all the members, my humble request, be very crisp and clear, and because to the point in terms of the asking the questions. So where Irfan will be able to really satisfy all of us and take the discussion in a fruitful manner to the conclusion. So Madhu, question answer session.
Yeah, there are no questions in the chat, but one Mr. Mudra Shah,
Haji.
I think he's from ECMI. He
And
has
who are the
raised a
members
question
they
in
want,
the,
they can raise their hand.
but participants who want to ask questions can raise their hands using the facility in the app. Mr. Mudra Shah of ECMI is asking, how is the disbursement of Swami Fund and the return policy? I think he is
So
there.
we
Mr.
are,
Mudra Shah, I'm bringing you online. Please unmute yourself. Is he there, Mr. Mudra Shah? I think he is not there. Anyway, the question is, once again, Mr. Irfan, how is the disbursement of Swami Fund and the return policy?
so let me give you a long answer to that. Right? There is an issue with my headphones. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Or reasonably audible at least. Right? When it comes to sanctioning the requirements, when it comes to determining what are the fund requirements to complete the project, we make sure that we try and cover every foreseeable requirement, whether it's provisions, contingencies, RERA penalties, and so on. And so that the project will not get stranded for requirement of funds going along. When it comes to disbursements, we are, there is no better way of describing this. We are stingy. We are stingy, and particular disbursements will happen only against progress in the project. We insist, and this is part of the documentation and reality in terms of asset management, that there will be a project management company that will be appointed for every project that we are financing. So that PMC company will have a representative who will be stationed at the developer's office and who will be there at the site every day, and therefore will be able to report to us. So he will be our eyes and our feet on the ground there, so that we are completely aware of what's happening. And disbursement will be linked to project progress. Disbursements will first be approved by the PMC company, and we will do directed disbursements only. It is not like we will be funding the developer and others, because our mandate is to complete construction. Our funding is for construction only. It cannot be used anywhere else. And that's where our entire effort will be. But if your question was, how much have we disbursed so far? We will never disclose that information. So for example, if you are a developer, have come to us and we have given you funding assistance, we cannot go around saying that we have disbursed 100 crores to this developer, because you can imagine if when that news gets public, your ability to negotiate terms with your creditors, with your contractors, is severely handicapped. So we will never disclose how much we are disbursing to a developer and how much we've already disbursed to the developer. I think the fact will be that everybody will be able to see the progress in the project. And let me just use this occasion to also mention that the progress in the project will be far faster, hopefully, than what even the developer had envisaged, right? Because when a developer does funding, or when a developer completes a project, there is always an eye on what kind of expenditure will generate cash flows. Where you need to raise an extra slab a little faster, and once you do that, more money will come in from existing home buyers and so on. And maybe not so much emphasis on let's say developing the clubhouse, developing the compound wall, and so on. When we are doing funding, we are in fact encouraging the developer to complete all aspects of his project. If there are 3 activities that can be started and completed at the same time, please go ahead and do it, right? So that the project gets completed faster. If while going vertically upwards, you can start the finishing work on the lower floors, please go ahead and do it. We have the funding available for it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Irfan. When Mr. CA, I think he's a CA, Mr. Dilip Agar, he is not there, but he has asked a question: how long it takes to complete the process till disbursement? If required, details are provided. How many projects are funded or disbursed, started in Greater Mumbai? How many projects are sanctioned till now?
So I mentioned some of those stats, right?
Yeah, you have it.
We've given final approval to 101 projects. How long does it take? Depends on clearly on the quality of the information. So that's one, right? We have an investment committee that meets almost every week. So there is almost no internal delay. If everything was within our control, we would have completed the process in maybe 30, 35 days or so, right? But there are activities which are not in our control, where the timeline depends on, it will take as long as it takes, right? So one is if there are lender approvals required. So if there are lender NOCs required, if a lender has to sign an inter-credit agreement, we are exposed to the timeline of the lender. So the lender might require a board meeting for sanctioning that NOC. That board could be meeting every month or every 15 days, and therefore that timeline gets added. The other bit is, like I mentioned, about approvals. It is possible that some of the approvals would have lapsed. Therefore, those approvals need to be taken, and that will add some timeline to it. But that's about it. With these two factors, our own internal timeline is 30, 35 plus. So it is 30, 35 days plus the timeline it takes for maybe these two activities. The third activity, like again I mentioned earlier, if it's a partnership firm that needs to be converted to a private limited company, that again takes a little bit of time and so on.
We have Mr. Anand Gupta who is coming live. Mr. Gupta, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kaji, for a nice presentation. See, I have got a question.
Sure.
See, to understand, real estate contributes say 7% to the GDP, and I don't know why. Ultimately, Swami Investment Fund is also doing a business by collecting a money from their investor. They are actually doing a business. They are also going to get some fair return. What made you to keep outside these commercial properties and all the properties which are having about 2 crore? Because particularly in Mumbai Municipal Corporation area, hardly property which is below this amount. And a lot of banks' money, lot of home buyers' money stuck up because of they stuck up halfway this project. So why don't you review your position to find all commercial, and what makes you to put this size? How does it help you keep the size upper? Because as soon as we add business and this socialistic view, then everything do not serve the purpose. So why don't you review and change this criteria?
So, sir, there are a lot of problems in the world. There are a lot of problems with real estate. There are problems in the commercial. There are problems in other asset classes as well. There's no denying that, right? This fund is a start. Given the size of these problems, instead of just waiting and wondering what to do, this fund is a step in one direction at least in terms of resolving the issues for affordable and mid-income residential projects. So, rather than doing nothing, we've taken a very, very significant small step in resolving issues for this particular sector only. And that is a policy decision and so on. Right? Beyond that, I really cannot comment on it.
Thank you, sir.
You will appreciate that these do not help at least Bombay Municipal Corporation area people.
So we have a limit of 2 crores for Mumbai, right? That 2 crores is the agreement value only. It does not include parking space. It does not include, other society charges, reimbursed pass-through charges, and so on. So roughly about, where the transaction cost ticket size is about 2.3, 2.4 crores fit into this in this fund. And there is a significant number of projects that are within this category. And therefore the decision was taken to limit it to these numbers.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We have Mr. Sharad Kharade from Sangli. Kharade sahab, bola tumhe.
Hello, sir. My queries already were answered. I'm from Kolhapur, Sangli area. We have started the project of affordable housing. Round about 325 units are there, and costing is from 12 lakhs to 30 lakhs. That's all. And we want funds for only construction in the tune of 50 to 20 crore rupees. That's all.
If the project is stalled, stressed in some way, and funding is not available, you can approach us. You answer. You can approach us.
Okay. Thank you.
Mudassar, you are not there. Mudassar, unmute yourself. Mudassar.
Yeah.
Questions are over.
Okay.
I have one question.
No, you will conclude and everything you will do now.
No. That is a different part. I just want to add a question.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Because conclusion will be with respect to what Irfan has said. I'm asking something. Yeah, I think Irfan, you have said the rules that you should be by the first name, so I am taking that liberty.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, I think my question is, as you have very rightly said, it's a very focused part with respect to affordable homes and stall projects. So the complications in the stall projects are such that RERA is involved. RERA is a watchdog looking into it. So what is their role in changing hands and where the fund gets in, Swami fund gets in? What is the role of RERA? Is it restricted to that, or because they already, as far as you may be more aware of it, like they already have a resolution plan in place. The MahaRERA has a resolution plan for stall. So how does this fit into it?
So honestly, we have not seen projects yet where there is a MahaRERA resolution plan in action. We would love to see them. When we get in, we only ensure that we estimate what are the RERA liabilities that could possibly come in. We try and do diligence on RERA compliance of the project, and we try and make provisions for whatever contingencies are possible on account of RERA judgments, right? The objective is very simple: to ensure that under no circumstance will the project be starved of funds to complete the construction.
Yeah, I think you answered.
Good. I think one is positive the time, and because Irfan also has got some other commitments. So I think any other members, if they have anything to say, please note it down, because we'll give the connectivity, the email address of Madhu.
We can. We will email to all the participants
all
and
the members,
those who are registered. Yeah,
and they can get connected with Irfan's office. And now, may I request Mr. Nirav Parmar? Madhu, my screen is gone.
What? No, you're there.
Sorry.
You're there.
I don't.
You are there in the spotlight.
Okay. So, may I request Nirav Parmar to please conclude this session, and because do the vote of thanks also.
Yeah. Thank you, Mahesh bhai. In fact, Irfan has set the context very straight, very clear, and he started things, as I said in my question also. The ground rules were very clear. He said that in the organization we work with the first name. That is how it works. And I think the culture which he has been explaining and talking about, it percolates in the association, in the organization. And that is how I think he has very nicely explained that within a span of 1 month, the team entirely started moving on it. And I think it's an amazing thing where real estate private equity funds are working at 18 to 21%. The Swami fund with the SBI cap was taken the first mover advantage, I would say, has put everything in place, has put up very nicely. He explained that the process which they follow, the committee meets every week, is one aspect. And more importantly, which I felt very nicely to be explained, which he took trouble and took planes to explain to everybody, the constitution of the committee, the 7-member committee where people come in from the real estate background, two members of the committee come in from the legal background. So everything, I think the brainstorming within the committee for giving any approval is taken care of. That's the process, so that it doesn't happen that something has been missed out once the proposal has been approved. And as he said, the dependability on the proposals being approved is entire. As far as the internal dependability on the committee is concerned, they have reduced it. They have brought it down to 35 to 40 days. The outer dependability is definitely on the lender. The lender is involved, or if the other aspects, the land records or the other aspects which they do not have any control. So I think as long as they have kept their timelines bracket fixed, other dependencies is a thing where the developer has to get in and ensure that he makes the two ends meet. So to ensure the thing. The other thing which we liked very much about the clear-cut definition, what is a brownfield, 30% project completed. What is important, that the project is delivered. And very rightly said, they're not looking at commercial because it opens a Pandora's box. And when you're talking about residential, I think you are going to the root of the purpose for which the Swami Fund has been brought into picture, to give homes to the people who have suffered. And as you rightly said, these are the things where the developer has sold the project partly. So there are home buyers who are locked into the project. They cannot have an exit unless there is a distress. Exit is always available in that sense. So this, the very Swami Fund, the purpose of it is to take them the last mile. The last mile has also been very nicely explained by Irfan, that you ensure that the project is completed and the handing over is to be done. And they have taken further efforts to ensure that they will not go by the developer's version, that you give me the fund and I will do the project. No, that there is another involvement of PMC, who will day-to-day monitor the project, ensure that, and as he rightly said, PMC will be the eyes and ears of the fund, and they will ensure that the right amount of fund goes to the developer and the project is completed. Or else you will see that the funds again gets diverted. I think he has explained the complete process, and in utilizing the COVID, and out of this 7 months, the progress which they have demonstrated and explained to us is tremendous. In fact, idea mooted by the finance ministry under the dashing prime minister would not have seen light had not the SBI cap been done the process and disciplined it to deliver. If you say 101 proposals approved, 22 already disbursement happening, or happening or in the process of being happening, I think it is a remarkable achievement. And you have also mentioned that private equity fund comes into the project. It takes 2 to 3 years to mature, to understand, and to reach to the operational level. I think it's a great achievement, and we will definitely like to see the progress. I think post-COVID, at the end of the first financial year, I think that would be your scorecard, and how much you have achieved. I think that would be a new benchmark which will be set up. I think with this, Irfan, we are very much thankful to you for giving your insight, and I think the best part of it is what we felt is the modesty, the manner in which you spoke, the discipline which you said, the transparency. I have never seen anything, and I am a technocrat. I hardly understand anything about finance, but what you spoke has just etched in my memory. I think that's the biggest takeaway from the session. And of course, this would not have happened had Mahesh Bhai not stepped in and put up a wonderful piece, got the very good speaker, and explained the latest development which is happening in the industry, and it is how the industry will see new phase of coming up. And I thank you very much for that. And definitely the president, vice president, and all the office bearers of BI who have taken this initiative to form the committees and put up, utilize the time of COVID and arrange for seminars. I think that was a wonderful part. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you, Nirav.
Thank you.
Very well summarized.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your kind words.
Thank you.
Madhu will conclude the session.
Yeah,
Madhu?
I think, yeah. Mahesh bhai, you can conclude if you want.
Madhu?
Madhu's.
Yes, sir, you can conclude.
बोला साहेब.
No, but we are concluding. I think, thank you,
No, I just
Nirupa.
mentioned we should have thanked Mr. Berinder also, but
Yes,
Mr.
yes,
Niro
yes,
was
yes,
not
ma'am.
aware of Mr. Berinder. I think he left.
I thank him because
No worries
at all. Thank you so much.
सर मी सांगितलं तुम्हाला गप्पा गोष्टी करायच्या याच्या नंतर तर मी
Irfan, once again, thank you very much for the wonderful session.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Irfan. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Bye.
Mr.
Bye.
बुद्ध साहेब आहात ना तुम्ही?
आहे.
थांबा थोडा वेळ ना, सगळे जाऊ दे सगळ्यांना. आपण
But काय झालं माहिती